Welcome to the Crypto Podcast. You can find all our episodes on thecryptopodcast.org. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You can find the links in the podcast description. I've also got 4 other podcasts, and I'm a podcasting coach. You'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. Looking forward to this one because even though he's not living in Poland anymore, he's Polish, and his name to you would be Lukas Sliwka, but to me it's Lukas Sliwka, which is plum, and he's the chief technical officer at Wax Blockchain, and they have a carbon neutral blockchain protocol, and there's a few more things, but I prefer that you kind of introduce. So welcome to the show, Lukas.
Thank you. Perfect pronunciation. You must have had a very, very good teacher. So this is awesome. Not every day I hear my name pronounced correctly, especially when it's done by a foreigner. So that's awesome. No, thank you for having me, for sure.
Yeah, no problem. So I mean, you're basically like you're a serial entrepreneur, because I saw the different companies you've been involved in. So you might let people know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been a technologist for the last 25 years. I've worked for various different industries. So what really interests me is kind of how do you apply technology to solve various different problems. I started as a developer programmer 25 years ago, back in the late 90s. Participated with the e-commerce boom and working on a whole bunch of different solutions back then, when the internet was just being born and expanding. And over the years, I worked within the banking industry, within car industry. I've done a whole bunch of digital transformations. Right before I joined Wax back in 2018, I was a CTO at Grindr, which is still the largest gay dating network in the world. When I was leaving that company, I was looking for that next area in technology that I thought was very interesting to explore. And then my particular skill set is organizational development and being able to kind of take small to mid-sized companies with a small engineering department and grow them to 150 to 100 people. So that's kind of my sweet spot, because I still like being down in the weeds, still being involved with day-to-day coding and development, while also growing the team. So when I was talking to the founders of Wax, they were running at the time, which is kind of interesting. They were running at the time OP Skins Marketplace, which was one of the first digital item marketplaces in the world, which was built on top of Steam, and it was a marketplace for essentially in-game items or skins, and that kind of developed into NFTs and blockchain, and really Wax was built as a extension of that marketplace and the technology to kind of enable everyone to truly own their digital assets and be able to trade them and kind of own them truly through the blockchain technology, if that makes sense.
Yeah, brilliant. And just going back a small bit, because you mentioned the car industry, so that was the collision theory. Because I remember reading about that. It was like to allow cars to detect bicycles and motorcycles. I found that kind of interesting.
Right. So there was a startup that I was involved in, and I love riding motorcycles, and actually a good friend of mine also, and he actually was thinking about how can we apply technology to protect motorcyclists, and whether we can actually develop a collision detection technology. So we were starting to work on the as a side project on the technology that would enable that type of safety features, but ultimately that didn't go anywhere. But it was a fun project nevertheless.
But I think the idea, I mean, I presume it came down to cost with the car manufacturers. I mean, they don't really care about the damages, because I was driving motorbikes for 5 years. Once I was 17, I love motorcycles, but I know the dangers as well. And I think if it's something that's actually needed, so I think you were probably,
for sure. Yeah, I mean, we developed this technology that was kind of based on the geolocation and how cell phone kind of technology works, but ultimately adoption never really took off. But like you said, car manufacturers are not really incentivized to dig into that yet. But like I said, it's kind of dear to my heart because I used to live in Los Angeles, and riding a motorcycle in Los Angeles on these freeways is just absolutely horrendous. So we were hoping to develop something that each driver would have installed in their cars as part of their entertainment system of the car. So it could kind of offer early warning collision detection for motorcycles. Yeah, that was very cool.
I think it's a fantastic idea. So maybe, hopefully, it'll somebody will get it
Yeah,
out there eventually. They'll embrace it.
exactly.
So
Who knows?
the carbon neutral. So you might just let people know a bit about that, because I think a lot of people were kind of conscious of all the energy needed for especially Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think when it comes to blockchain technologies, there are essentially different ways to achieve consensus. And consensus is essentially a term that is used to describe a way blockchain determines whether a record on the blockchain is irreversible or not. And without getting too technical, different blockchains use different mechanisms to achieve that. Bitcoin mining and Ethereum mining, especially before the Ethereum converted to proof of stake, were very, very power hungry, right? Like you need to have massive number of machines and nodes running all over the world that was essentially power that blockchain. When it comes to Wax, we are delegated proof of stake, so that's kind of the DPoS algorithm, and it's much more energy efficient. It's I would consider it third or fourth generation of blockchain technologies. So from that perspective, we are not running like thousands of nodes, and there's essentially a different mechanism to achieve that irreversibility on the blockchain, which is also part of the we call that an antelope family of blockchain technologies, because at the end of the day, Wax is a hard fork of Antelope, and we've made some modifications to the protocol to specifically allow digital asset ownership and trading to make it a little bit easier. But yeah, from the perspective of energy consumption and how Wax blockchain works is carbon neutral, and we also have implemented carbon offsets, buybacks on our chain to kind of further offset the energy requirements for the blockchain to operate.
And with you mentioned the Antelope, does your thing kind of work in tandem with, say, the new Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, and all these different ones, or is it a totally separate system?
Yeah, so there's different technologies out there when it comes to blockchain. So Ethereum, Polygon, Immutable. I kind of lump them together into like this EVM chains, essentially, which are derivatives of Ethereum. Antelope is kind of a parallel technology, which it's not Antelopes are not EVM chains, although we have the EVM compatibility now built in, and then you could also look at another family of blockchain technology, which is I guess Cosmos Tendermint, for example, and that's also a different technology. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we all want to kind of achieve the same thing, which is, apply blockchain into solving some specific problems like decentralization and certain level of anonymity. But also, ultimately, for Wax, it's an ability to have full ownership of your digital items. and enable high volume of transactions, high throughput behind asset trading and any sort of gaming applications or Web3 applications that you may want to build on top of Wax.
And what's the speed? Is it kind of instant, or is there a time frame for transactions?
So Wax is super fast. If you were to actually compare us to other players in the ecosystem, there's a good site on DappRadar. If you go to on DappRadar, if you look at like their industry report, you'll see that Wax currently is processing about 20 to 22 million transactions per day, which is about I want to say 2.5 times the number of transactions of all other blockchains combined today. And when it comes to daily active wallets, we are also pretty up there. We're pretty much tied with like Binance with about 500,000 daily active wallets. So there's just a lot of activity on chain, and that's primarily because we have a lot of gaming applications, and Wax is a platform where you don't have the gas fees, right? Which means that it was tailor built for microtransactions of assets, right? So on Wax, you can have a digital asset that costs maybe 50 cents or 20 cents, and you can still trade it without paying some massive gas fees per transaction, which is very crucial when you have when you want to build a game, for example, and you've got a lot of trading that's happening, and like in-game assets are actually represented by your NFT. So that's kind of when it comes to throughput and transaction. I think today the maximum number of transactions that we can process is about 10,000 transactions per second. We've never hit that, but I think the top at the top of the market was about 3,000. We're processing around 3,000 transactions per second. And quite recently, we also implemented a technology that allows us to scale the blockchain through essentially sharding and doing these side chains, which gives us a promise in the future to go much higher, to maybe 100,000 transactions per second, or that type of stuff. So the technology is here, but we'll probably be implementing that as needed as our ecosystem expands.
Yeah. And with the game and the NFTs, because I was just looking at some of the stuff, and you have like Marvel history and then Hot Wheels and different things. You might just kind of tell me, as well as games, just kind of talk about how the whole thing kind of works.
Oh yeah, so for sure. So we brought a lot of different companies onto the Wax blockchain, and the companies that you mentioned, like Hot Wheels, for example, or we also worked with AMC and NASCAR. We've got Street Fighter. Back in 2019 and 2020, one of the first things that we wanted to do is show the application of digital assets and ownership. So back then we started partnering with different brands to essentially say, hey, if you want to have your digital collectibles represented as NFTs, then you can actually do that. You can actually set up your collections. You can set up different rarities. You can set up essentially different drops, and we were working with a whole bunch of different companies to essentially allow them to do that on Wax blockchain. And that's kind of seeded the ecosystem for us. One of the things that I like to talk about is that Wax blockchain has a very organically grown ecosystem of users, right? So you have a big community of collectors and content creators, and that's kind of one side of it. And then you also have a big community of people who actually build applications like marketplaces and exchanges, games, and other applications on top of that. But that community has been very much organically grown from like 2019 and through 2020 and now. You know, we typically don't write checks for big checks for projects to come to our platform, which is very different with other ecosystems, right? Like other ecosystems, you typically see, you know, $5 million checks or $10 million checks being written for projects to actually come in, and that's one approach. But I think what that ends up creating is very fragmented community, because you may have a project that comes in and they build something, but you know, they don't necessarily focus on growing the community as much, right? What you see on Wax is that you have a lot of very passionate people who are there, number one for the technology, but also for the digital assets that they collect.
And like, say with because some of the gaming ones, there was like a starter pack of stuff like that, and you go to say OpenSea or something. Is it that you can have everything on your system without going to OpenSea, or is that just kind of the norm?
Well, so there's a whole bunch of different marketplaces on Wax. You know, you've got Atomic Hub, for example, or Viral Market, or Hive. There's, I think, 5 or 6 different marketplaces on Wax that you can essentially, you know, go into and buy digital assets if you want to. Typically, what ends up happening is that any sort of projects that are you know, coming and building on Wax, they try to do embedded marketplace within their game experience or Web3 experience, so that, you know, you're not necessarily sending people onto the secondary marketplaces. But once you start playing a game, once you start using the application, if you want to now enjoy like this secondary trading experience, then you would go onto these other marketplaces. Very recently, you know, one of the mottos that I have is, you know, I want Wax to be as open as possible, and enable developers to have access to the Wax utility, right? Because we have a very advanced technology to actually build on top, but I don't want them to be shut off from liquidity in other ecosystems, right? So in our cloud wallet, which is one of the main wallets in our ecosystem that probably processes, you know, 80% of the transaction traffic, we've actually built in bridges that allow you to bridge your assets between Wax and Ethereum and the Binance, and then very soon we're going to also add Polygon and Immutable and other blockchains as well. So, you know, the mantra that I say sometimes is, you know, utility of Wax, liquidity everywhere, which allows people to actually build here, but still have access to list their assets on OpenSea or Rarible or Blur or on some other marketplaces if they want to. Although you know, the only problem is that you know, sometimes users on Wax are very spoiled because you know, we don't have the gas fees. And once they start bridging to Ethereum, for example, they're like, why am I paying $40 per transaction? So, you know, that's usually a sticker shock for everyone. But yeah.
And which say like, because I know there's some companies, and with the gaming, that the assets that you buy in a game can be transferred to another game. I'm assuming with your technology, when you've got different developers doing it, it kind of allows the system to work better, because it's probably in everyone's interest that they can all kind of collaborate.
Oh, for sure, exactly. So it's funny, when we were, you know, when we were commemorating 10th million wallet being created on Wax, we actually did like this massive drop. We actually created NFTs for everyone, and we created this 10 million NFT drop, and we didn't really know, you know, how the community would be using these NFTs. And what ends up happening is that, those NFTs, in addition to like, in-game NFT assets or collections that were created, communities now creating, their own games or their own applications, like, staking, DAOs or other games to actually use NFTs that were not necessarily intended for that, right? Which is kind of an interesting concept because digital asset ownership, true digital asset ownership, allows you to create use cases and applications that others may not necessarily thought about, right? So I could potentially, build a game and create a whole bunch of assets within that game, but someone else could build something else, some other utility for them, right? So it's a very interesting kind of collaborative ecosystem that can develop for sure.
Yeah, oh, excellent. And I think it was I'm trying to look, yeah, a Discord bot with honeycomb. You might explain what that's what's that about?
Oh yeah, so the I think you may be talking about the Hive Marketplace, or on Wax, if you're using Hive Marketplace, and you're kind of part of that ecosystem, you may be also earning honey, which is their token. It's kind of a similar concept to that you see on other marketplaces like Blur or Rarible, where you have some sort of a leaderboard in terms of the users and people who are actually interacting with that ecosystem, and that earns you the rewards. So blockchain is a very interesting ecosystem because whether you're building a marketplace or you're building some other application, or maybe you're building a game, your interaction with that application can earn you rewards that are not just some points or just kind of live within this closed off wall garden. Those are actual things that end up in your wallet, and you could sell them, trade them on secondary marketplaces. They actually could potentially have value, right? Which is a very interesting extension to, let's say, Web2 gaming, because if you look at the Web2 gaming ecosystem, a lot of times you have some sort of in-game currency, right? Like when you're playing, let's say, mobile game, and you want to enable certain features, a lot of times you have to do like an in-game purchases, right? That gives you points, and then those points can unlock certain things within the game. But in Web2 world, these things do not really have value outside of that game ecosystem, right? You can't just take them on the secondary marketplace and trade them. With the blockchain technology, what that allows you to do is that, let's say I'm playing, Forge Arena or Avalon or some other game, Nova Pangea on Wax, and let's say I'm earning some items, or I'm maybe buying a starter pack, and that unlocks certain features within the game. Well, guess what? I mean, I can then take these assets out of the game and then trade them freely on secondary marketplaces, which kind of creates this extra layer to the experience. I mean, I can enjoy the game, but also I can then collect and trade items and potentially make money on that, right? So that gave a lot of rise to different category of applications. We typically call them like play to own or play to earn, where your activity within the game is not only entertainment, but it could have commercial value, and I potentially could make extra money by doing these activities.
And is that something that you've developed yourself, or is it developers have actually created these different games?
So those are being developed by developers. We did so there's a massive ecosystem of games on Wax, where third-party studios and third-party developers actually came into our ecosystem to build on top of Wax, to build these applications. We ourselves also launched our own gaming studio towards the end of 2021. It's Toronto Studios, so we have our own title. Blockchain Brawlers is one of the games that we launched, and it has a very similar mechanic that I talked about, where you've got this game that was actually we partnered with Richard Garfield, who is the designer of Magic the Gathering, and he helped us build this mechanic of a game. We're also working on a whole bunch of different titles through that Toronto Studios to showcase the power of the technology, but also potentially develop some commercial opportunities for the company as well. So we try to dog food our own tools and ecosystems to showcase to everyone in the community how you can necessarily potentially apply it, right, and build various different Web3 applications. But what we've seen in our space is that there's a massive amount of developers and companies that came in, and they are building applications that we ourselves not even thought about, which is really cool to see.
Excellent. And your financial modeling, is it a kind of an entrance fee, or are you working on a kind of royalty basis on the sales of the NFTs and the assets and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, so there is depending on the marketplace, marketplaces typically charge the marketplace fee, so they take a percentage of the sale, so they do that. We also we're one of the first ecosystems, I think, that is actually distributing part of the proceeds from these digital assets, sales and trading to our community, right? So we actually set up back in I want to say in 2020, we actually set up a Wax DeFi ecosystem. So a certain percentage of the sales of the NFTs are actually distributed back to the community, which is also our way to kind of give back and make sure that a percentage of the profits actually ends up in Wax blockchain users' wallets.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the active users then get rewarded as opposed to the guys that, no, that's a brilliant system.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's important, and obviously, marketplaces need to operate and charge fees, but we want to make sure that people who actually participate in the ecosystem are rewarded as well, for sure.
And the atomic ads, then, is that advertisements inside in these things, the games, or what's that about?
Yeah, so atomic ads is something that launched fairly recently. So one of the companies that is working on Wax, and they have been part of the ecosystem from a very beginning, is Pink Network. Pink Network is also one of the validators and block producers on Wax. So they contribute to the ecosystem in many different ways. They run Atomic Hub, Atomic Marketplace, and they recently they launched this new ad network, which like you said, allows advertisers to kind of reach into the community and the applications that actually run on Wax. We are in the middle of actually implementing Atomic Ads into our products as well. So Atomic Ads are going to be part of the cloud wallet and our marketplace that we run, and potentially our games as well. So we'll see how that particular new network develops over time.
And just kind of delving a bit deeper in that one, it's probably a minefield, but like I see a lot of the companies that like to advertise are the gambling companies, which wouldn't kind of necessarily would be difficult with when you're talking about gaming because you might have a young age. I don't know, do they have
Right,
to register?
right,
And also the likes of toxic companies like, Red Bull, McDonald's, and the things like that.
right, right.
So perhaps a company doesn't want to have these advertisers, but I presume the developers would have a choice. It's not just splattered out there anyway.
Oh yeah, right. So the way the atomic ads is being built is it's going to over time allow you to have a greater control of what type of things are being shown and how the advertisers are actually clusters. So it's gonna be a little bit better when it comes to developers' choice and also publishers' choice in terms of what kind of applications and user they can target, right? So that's the premise behind it for sure.
And just kind of like say the marketing then with the company and everything, like a lot, or just engagement with Discord. I personally don't like Discord; it drives me crazy. But I see people have kind of started, using Twitter as well for kind of this space. What you find is
Right.
serves you best, or do you try to just keep everybody in house?
Well, the community. So let's talk about a little bit about community development and how the blockchain ecosystems enable these different clusters of people to interact. So typically, what ends up happening is that you've got a project may have a Twitter and a Discord server where they kind of engage with everyone. Obviously, Telegram is huge. So you have a lot of these social features that allow people to interact. I think that over time, what you're going to see is emergence of a lot of like the social wallet, social marketplaces, or social web 3 applications where this social aspect that we kind of take for granted in Web 2 is going to also be baked into Web 3 applications, and that includes also the any sort of automated bots. You mentioned Discord and Twitter and Telegram. I think there's also a certain level of automated intelligence or that there's going to be part of these ecosystems that will develop over time as well, especially now when we are looking at chat GPT and emergence of this AI. There's for sure going to be an intersection of that with blockchain and community development as well. Yeah.
And just curious because there's a few things that I saw with the chat GPT, and one guy had asked something. It's a blind boy. I follow him on his podcast, and he asked something. It was something strange about
Right.
leprechauns and things like that in Ireland, and it gave him an answer. So he kind of does, hot takes. And when he came back
Yeah.
and said, "Where did you get the information?" It said, "I made it up." And then I saw another person doing the black side of
Yep.
AI. So, like, unfortunately, a lot of people, it's like the media, they kind of believe what they see. So I think it's kind of buyer
Right.
beware as far as AI is concerned.
Oh, for sure. Well, listen, these models have a certain level of emergent behavior. So some people call it, the AI has a tendency to hallucinate. But the hallucination is really an emergent behavior where a model can be sophisticated enough where it starts deriving answers that it may not necessarily have, right? And it happens at the basic level. So it may not be as sophisticated with the answers. So it may seem strange. But the fact that the AI model is sophisticated enough to be able to do that, we haven't seen that in the past, right? In the past, it was kind of very binary. It's either you had an answer or you didn't have an answer. Now these models get to the point where you've got enough data and enough intelligence in there where you can start deriving information, and that information may be wrong, but it will try to give you an answer, and it may not be the correct answer depending on the data that it has, right? So when using these tools, you do have to be you do have to be careful. And in fact, I did hear stories where students may be using these tools to try to cheat on exams or write papers or whatever. A lot of times, if you actually dig in and you look at the submitted essay or whatever, there may be things that are not true because the AI ended up hallucinating or deriving answers that it didn't necessarily have, right? Whatever you do with the technology, you always have to kind of validate it and do a deep dive in terms of proofreading to make sure that you didn't end up getting an answer that is incorrect, right?
Yeah, and I'm just wondering because
Yeah.
like the algorithms on all these other social media platforms, they're giving you, whatever belief system we've got. You're wondering why your
Right.
friend thinks totally different, but he's bombarded with what he believes. And I'm assuming
Yep.
it's going to work the same kind of way. It's just reinforcing your
Yeah.
belief system.
Oh, for sure. I think that there is a danger to where you can develop models that are polarizing, right? I mean, when you're training an AI model, it depends on the data that you're going to be feeding it, right? So if you are very selective with the set of information, with the data set that you're actually feeding into the initial model, then that's going to skew that model towards certain type of answers, right? There is a danger that potentially this AI technology will amplify the divisions and polarization that we already see in the social media space, which I think is the reason why you see calls for tighter oversight and kind of a lot of thought leaders in the space are saying, wait, we don't really have the guardrails in place yet, and the technology is moving so fast that there are dangers inherent to the application of AI at this point, and this type of selective training, right, is I think part of that. Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, given the size and all the transactions that you do, the one thing that I have a pet peeve about is actually the financial industry, like PayPal. I mean, there's times I see even at one stage there, I got like a 50 affiliate link thing, and it was like 10% is what they took. And you're looking at that going, and then you look at like Visa, MasterCard, and 3%. I mean, I like
Yeah,
no matter what you're buying, if you're buying a Ferrari, they're getting 3%. And like
right.
even with the currency exchange, because a lot of the times, even big companies like Ryanair and all that and Amazon, they incorporate their currency, and they, like, most people aren't aware, but a lot of these are charging like 7% spread. And
Oh, for
it's,
sure.
yeah, so I would love to see all them wiped out, to be honest with you, the way that they're actually manipulating people, and that it's all done through blockchain technology. But unfortunately, we need cash. But can you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the blockchain has emerged as a very interesting alternative to the traditional, currency transmission services, and I think that part of the problem with blockchain is a lot of institutions that have been established for a lot of different years, including the governments. They're looking at that and they are like, wait a minute, here's a system that is more efficient, that works very well, and it's in parallel to, let's say, the well-established companies, like banks and credit card companies. I think that any technology that is disruptive, that is working better, is going to threaten the status quo, right? And I think over time that's going to force the change, right? Because anytime a new technology emerges that addresses a specific problem and it does it in a way that's actually better and more efficient than what's today, it will essentially force a change on an existing players, because they have to compete, right? I think that blockchain and crypto in general doesn't have yet a critical mass when it comes to the mainstream customer adoption, um, but um, but we're getting there. I mean, over the last couple of years, you've seen more and more people being comfortable with, investing in Bitcoin or Ethereum, or interacting with Web3 applications. People are not as scared about having a wallet and dealing with all that stuff. I think over time, if we look at, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years, I would imagine that blockchain technology is going to improve the space when it comes to credit cards or payments, and how you move money between between the borders, right? Yeah.
And Wax Labs, then what's Wax Labs?
So Wax Labs is our we when we started the blockchain back in when we launched it in 2019, we wanted to make sure that there is essentially development fund established, that allows us to fund development of the ecosystem. So Wax Labs, anyone can, if you have an idea of how to improve Wax ecosystem, or maybe build some sort of Web3 application, you can apply for funds through labs.wax.io, and submit a proposal, which is then evaluated by our community and our company to kind of see if it warrants a grant of funds. And there's been a lot of different projects that actually build a whole bunch of value additive type of applications and tools for the Wax ecosystem. Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, like we've covered it. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss about the Wax that we haven't covered?
Let me think. I think we've hit a lot of main points. I was actually pleasantly surprised that you guided with a lot of different questions around the whole ecosystem, which was very nice. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. So I suppose you might let people know, Łukasz, how they can get in contact with you.
Oh, for sure. So you can always contact our team if you go to wax.io site. So there's Discord and Twitter, and Telegram links on that site. We also have, if you want to participate in the community initiatives, you can go to wax.io/community. And then if you want to reach me, then I'm Lukas Republic, LUK, Lukas with a K on Twitter. So you can also hit me up on that platform as well if you want to get in touch with me.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll make sure I'll put all the links both on the audio and the video. Dziękuję bardzo, Łukasz.
Dziękuję bardzo. Do widzenia.
Do widzenia. So that's all for the Crypto Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on the cryptopodcast.org. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube. And my podcast coaching, along with my 4 other podcasts, you'll find on bio.link/podcaster. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends. Until next week.